for every entrepreneur, it used to be growth at all costs. أهم شيء بالشركة top line revenue growth. Now it's not. أهم شيء بالشركة is do you get to profitability. Once you get to profitability, then you refocus on growth.
legacy بتاعنا
وأنا رأيي الشخصي is everyone deserves to have a family. جزء من الحل لهالمشكلة اللي عم تأثر على كل بلاد العالم is testing the sperm and freezing the sperm. That's where legacy comes in. We shifted more towards B2B. We unlocked contracts مع الحكومة الأمريكية. We unlocked contracts with payers. We unlocked contracts with employers. فالشركات نفسهم who are now covering fertility benefits that go towards our bottom line. Great. So for us, that's really, I think, the future, which is we should be expanding this model, not just from the US, but to other countries in the world.
لما بنختار سبونسر بتكون شركات احنا مؤمنين بيهم وبيكونوا أصدقاء للبرنامج. أول سبونسر وأصدقاء مغامرة ناوي أكبر بروب تك في أفريقيا. ناوي بسبب استخدامهم للتكنولوجيا قدروا في أقل من 7 سنين يكونوا من أكبر وأنجح شركات الريل ستيت في المبيعات. تاني سبونسر وأصدقاء مغامرة في الحلقة دي أمنلي الليدنج ديجيتال انشورنس بروكر في مصر. ممكن تشتروا من أمنلي تأمين عربيات، تأمين طبي، تأمين عبيت، أو زي ما احنا عملنا في مغامرة تشتروا تأمين على الشركة وموظفينها، والموضوع كله بيبقى ديجيتال وبياخد 60 ثانية بس. الحلقة دي برعاية ناوي وأمنلي. يا رب الحلقة تعجبكم.
legacy بتاعنا
It's الخصوبة عند الرجال. It's male fertility. فشو معناها بالضبط؟ لأن احنا بنعرف إنه بآخر 40 سنة في مثل تدهور بالخصوبة عند الرجال. And so this means that we have a decline of 50 to 60% in the sperm counts of men. So this is يعني شو معنى sperm؟ الحيوانات المنوية أو المنو. So this means the average male is producing less and less sperm every year.
وجودة كمان مش مجرد بس.
إنه العدد the volume. هلا أكيد في مصطلحات بالإنجليزي بنحكيهم sperm count, sperm concentration, sperm motility, sperm morphology and volume.
ليه ده بيحصل؟
هلا جزء كبير is really around your lifestyle وطريقة كيف عايش حياتك. فإذا عم تحكي عن نسبة the obesity levels. إذا عم تحكي مثلاً عن the levels of exercise and activity, the lifestyle, the nutrition, أكلنا اللي عم ناكله. أعطيك مثل. أكلنا, the Mediterranean diet is actually the best diet for your sperm count. بس الأكل اللي عم ناكله هون بأمريكا وبكندا بهالبلاد in general are much less healthy, much more processed. All of these things are very bad for your sperm count. And so we look at lifestyle, we look at nutrition, we look at the way we're living our day-to-day lives. وهلا عم نلاقي كمان وجود الميكروبلاستيك. These microplastics that are in your sperm. هلا نحن أكيد جايين من لبنان so حنزيد عليهم شوية فرنسي. بس هالميكروبلاستيك اللي بتلاقيهم هلا بالمنو are very damaging, and there's reports that there are links between the presence of microplastics to infertility.
ايه اللي خلاك تقرر ان دي الحاجة اللي انت عايز تعملها؟ يعني لو هنرجع ورا شوية، لو حد ما يعرفش خالد خالص، احكي لي.
من طفولتي هذا كان حلمي بالحياة. طبعا لا والله لما كنت صغير أنا كان حلمي إنه أكون لاعب فوتبول. you know, as you get older your life changes. هلا أنا معظم شغلي كان بهذا المجال, something to do with healthcare. So بلشت my career was healthcare consulting. اشتغلت كم سنة مع Oliver Wyman, وبعديها لما درست بهارفارد my studies were mostly around healthcare and healthcare policy. So I always knew that I wanted to work in this field of healthcare. كان واحد بصفي شاب عماني كان بيحكي لي he went through the process of being diagnosed with cancer. And before his chemotherapy began, اقترح عليه الدكتور go and do sperm banking. روح فرز المنو تبعك. يعني هاي كانت أول مرة أنا بسمع بحياتي هالفكرة. إنه going to freeze your sperm was a very strange and foreign concept. But I looked it up. I Googled, كنت عايش ببoston. I Googled local sperm bank in Boston. I found the clinic. وأنا رحت. I went through the whole process myself. ولقيت هالتجربة يعني من الأول للآخر. Every single step was so uncomfortable. يعني حط حالك بهذا الموقع. You're going, they're handing you a cup. بياخدوك على أوضة صغيرة فيها هيك leather couch, كنباية وطاولة, وعلى الطاولة في مجلات إباحية. Okay? و you turn on the television. وشوفي على الشاشة is you're seeing scenes from the video that the person before you was watching. And I remember the nurse told me, sir, you have 10 minutes to produce your sperm sample because someone needs to use the room right after you. عندك 10 دقايق. تفضل. 10 minutes is plenty of time. It's plenty of time. It's fine. But the whole process was very awkward, very emasculating, very uncomfortable. It took me a week to get my results. And after I got my results, there was no one to really sit down and explain what does this mean. But all I knew is, okay, great. يعني I can have kids someday. I got the check mark saying, yes, Khaled, you can have kids. This was around the time, as بتعرف الشركات, Roman and Hims. They primarily sell erectile dysfunction medication. Today they do GLP-1s, they do hair loss treatment. بس بال 2018, these were companies that had really taken off. They'd raised a lot of venture capital. A lot of the work they were doing was عم يغيروا العقلية وطريقة التفكير about these topics that are more stigmatized and more uncomfortable to do at a clinic. And what they said is, خلاص, let's bring them to the home, let's make them comfortable, and let's make the price affordable. This is what I wanted to do with Legacy. I demmed it to a startup incubator program by Harvard called the Harvard Innovation Labs in قبلنا. And we spent 9 months there just building and developing the product that eventually became the Legacy Kit, which is a mail-in kit. You order it online. نبعت لك إياها على البيت. You go through the process at home. You send it back to our lab. We then conduct a full semen analysis and we freeze your sperm.
الرؤية اتغيرت ازاي من أيام لما كنت في هارفارد في الانوفيشن لاب لدلوقتي؟ الدنيا اتغيرت ازاي؟
خلينا نحكي 2019 2020 2021. هاي كانت فترة يعني there was the amount of investments from investors was extremely high. You had zero interest rates and the zero interest rate phenomenon, ZIRP. During this time, investors were throwing money into startups, into very high risk investments, like, for example, a male fertility startup. Not just us, but healthcare, consumer startups. هلا الوضع تغير كتير من 2019 ل 2022. بهالفترة نحن كل our investors مركزين بس على شغلة واحدة, which is, are you profitable? How do you get to profitability? We will be كشركة, we will be a profitable business within 3 to 6 months. قارن من 5 سنين where we were very comfortably burning $1 million a month or $500,000 a month. Very different story than it is today, where you're burning 200, 150, 150, and then eventually you get to zero. فهالعقلية كلها, for every entrepreneur, it used to be growth at all costs. أهم شيء بالشركة, top line revenue growth. Now it's not. أهم شيء بالشركة is, do you get to profitability? Once you get to profitability, then you refocus on growth. But it's been a very big shift, I think, for me and for the team, in even just the mindset of grow versus get to profit.
طب ده معناه ايه بقى يعني بشكل مفصل؟ يعني ازاي اروح من $1 مليون spend لدلوقتي where you're turning profitable? What does it actually mean?
في طريقتين الشركة بدها توصل ل profitability. Either you're growing your revenue or you're cutting your costs. It's very simple. هاي أنا تعلمتها بالجامعة. You don't need a fancy business degree to know this. There's 2 ways. Number one is we shifted more towards B2B. We unlocked contracts مع الحكومة الأمريكية. We unlock contracts with payers. We unlock contracts with employers. فالشركات نفسهم who are now covering fertility benefits that go towards our bottom line. Great. That's one way. And I would say I think we tripled our revenue from 2022 to 2024, something along those lines. So this is one way to grow. The other is you have to keep a handle on your costs, or even to find ways to bring down your costs. So for us, it was very tactical. So first of all was we had to think about what is the right size of team. And so whereas in previous years, we would have continued to hire, we kept the size of the team largely flat. And you can see even today, the average person is more productive because they're able to use AI while they're working. You don't need to hire as many people as as in the past إذا من 4 أو 5 سنين. We went through every single software we were using. If it wasn't mandatory, we cut it. We went through every contractor we were using. If they weren't mandatory, we cut it. We went through every contract we have and we renegotiated every single contract. And this was to bring down our costs. They tried to increase our prices. We said, no, we want zero reduction. So يعني we did this with a fine tooth comb, day in and day out. And a lot إنه الواحد بده يتمرن كأنك عم تتمرن الرياضة. It's the same thing. You have to practice and exercise these muscles to develop the habits in order to cut your costs because it's a mindset. بدك الواحد يسأل حاله before he orders a single box of snacks to the office. Should we get the $60 snacks or the $20 snacks? And if you do this 1,000 times, that $40 becomes $40,000.
طب والسيلز انجن اتغيرت ازاي من بي تو بي تو بي تو سي؟ يعني مثلا في حاجه زي كده معظم الرجاله مش عارفه المشكله فين اصلا، ففي حته educational ولما بعملها بي تو سي هيبقى الموضوع اصعب بكتير
صح.
عن ما اعملها بي تو بي، لان ساعتها في decision maker او decision makers اقل بكتير.
صح.
فازاي برضو ده غير طريقتكم؟
هلا انه decision makers اقل كتير او اقل بس اصعب بكتير
واطول برضو بكتير.
واطول بكتير. عم نحكي انه سنين. مثلا هلا نحن مضينا عقد مع الحكومه الامريكيه، صلنا 5 سنين عم نشتغل وعم نجتهد على هذا العقد. فاذا بتقارن D2C versus B2B، D2C اسرع. right you throw up some advertisements، حط دعايات فيسبوك انستغرام سهل كتير وفيها feedback loop. فيعني in a very short period of time تتعلم وبتتطور وبتشوف يعني which are the visuals that are resonating, what is the messaging that is resonating, who is the right audience for us, مين هن الناس اللي عم بيشتروا منا أصلا. D2C you can do this very quickly. B2B it's a very slow and painful process to get to the same point. But again, this was part of it because B2B is a cheaper and longer lasting go-to-market than D2C. There's much more recurring revenue on the B2B side of the business. So بعطيك مثلا I think بنوفمبر 2020 مضينا عقد مع a payer called UnitedHealthcare. وهن أكبر وأهم payer هون بأمريكا. I think they control about 80% of the market. Some give or take, I could be wrong. بس حوالي 80. And that was our first contract with an insurance company. We then signed more and more contracts. So UnitedHealthcare, we started in New York. Then we signed UnitedHealthcare in many other states. We turned that into a national contract. We then signed similar contracts. Aetna, Cigna, Anthem, Emblem. يعني أهم payers بالبلد. We signed contracts with them one by one. Once you have the contract's not going to go away. And that's very different from D2C. D2C, easy come, easy go. The other arm of the business where we invested was on the military side. So في منطق ليه الواحد to freeze his sperm when he's joining the army. It makes a lot of sense. أولاً الواحد يمكن يتأثر just from all الكيماويات, the ammunition, just everything in general to do with being in the army. ثانياً, there's a risk to you. يعني إذا الواحد انصاب, إذا صار له شيء, right? You get hit, you get wounded, you get killed. These are all reasons why you want to make sure you can still have a child someday. We just signed 2 contracts with the Department of Defense to cover active duty men in the military to freeze their sperm. So sperm testing and sperm freezing is now paid for by the US government for 1.1 million men who are active duty in the military.
ايه اللي اتعلمته برضه من الحته اللي هو your product led اللي هو customer بيشوف حاجه اونلاين وبعد كده بيشتريها، ليه برضه حته when you're sales led where you have a sales team enterprise، ايه برضه اللي اتعلمته في الحته دي؟
حتى لشركه B2B ونحن I would consider us kind of B2B to C in some ways or even B2G to C. كل الأحرف B و C و D, we've done it all. We've done it all, but I think even in a world where we are marketing to employees at a company, let's say we have a contract with an employer, اعتبر Facebook. We have a contract with them. Any employee at Facebook can get our product at no cost to them. We're still running ads for the employees to know that they have this benefit. With the military contract, I'm not نفس الشيء. So someone who's in the military is going to see one of our ads and say, wow, I have this benefit. وبيرجع بيحكي with his superior, his commanding officer, whatever it is, to go and get the sperm testing and sperm freezing. Because we need education and awareness for someone to know that this benefit exists. So even in a world where we're B2B, we're still doing B2C tactics. These are muscles that we've built as well on the marketing side. So it's not just sales.
طب اتعلمت برضو ايه من حتة اللي هو ازاي اقلل الكاك برضو ان على طول الناس تبقى ايه اللي اتعلمته في الحتة دي؟
D2C كان في فترة كنا عم ندفع حوالي $300 كاك، $300 او اكتر. يعني كان في فترة we were actually losing money on every new customer قد ما عم ندفع just on marketing. هلا over time that's gone down 300 200 هلا حوالي 100 150 بين 50 و 150. فكتير أرخص. ليه؟ هلا part of it is we just got better. The other is now this is our blended CAC. The more B2B that you have, the lower your overall cost. Because then you are taking the cost of one salesperson and you're dividing it across 50 sales. So the CAC gets divided across many sales.
يعني ايه we got better?
Some of it is very tactical. We found that مثلا إذا حاطين دعاية and there's a big sperm on it, people are going to click on that ad. The big sperm, which we use in all our ads now, is very attractive from a click-through rate perspective. We got a lot better at refining مين هن الناس بالضبط اللي عم يشتروا our product. Who is our ideal customer profile? And we found success in maybe 4 or 5 different markets, different kinds of ideal customer profiles. The other on the B2B side is we got better at relationship building. If you think about the relationships that you need to build, these are not 6-month relationships or 12-month relationships. يعني في ناس صرنا 4 أو 5 سنين عم نتعامل معهم. They need to see the legacy brand grow and evolve, and they need to see trust in our product. This doesn't happen after 1 year or 2 years. Sometimes it can take many years. So part of it is learning, part of it is just we've been in the market for long enough. Everyone knows us. فلما نحن نحكيهم إنه عم نحكي عن legacy, they know exactly who we are. سامعين عن الشركة, سامعين عن البرودكت, فهمانين فكرة mail in, right? Mail in semen analysis, مش بس at the clinic, but actually mail in.
ازاي برضو لو انا هبني الeducational element لحاجة جديدة, ازاي برضو اقدر افهم اليوزر المشكلة فين؟ That's برضو relatively subtle.
كل موضوع الفرتيليتي بشكل عام, this is a women's issue. هذا بس يعني بخصوص النسوان والرجال ما له دور. بس الواقع انه actually for these cases of infertility, الخصوبة, in these cases it is actually just as likely من الرجال as it is من النسوان. So in these cases, you actually need to be thinking about the male side and the female side. We have done a lot of media and press and PR to educate men around the fact إنه هو يعني هن إلهم دور كمان ودور مهم. Actually لما الواحد بيكبر نوعية المنو actually gets worse and worse over time. So this has been a big education component in the last 5 years. And there is a shift that is happening very quickly. هلا برأيي الشخصي أكتر بأمريكا من ببلادنا. Right? عم تحكي بالإمارات السعودية ما بنقدر نحكي بهالمواضيع بطلاقة. Right? It's still a very sensitive, it's still a very kind of under the radar conversation to say you as a man, maybe you're the problem.
فحتة ال ICP برضو حاجة كنت قريتها ان انتوا 50% من الناس اللي بتشتري are actually ستات.
تقريبا هلا of the couples that are buying from us, which is 30% of our business, منها 30% 50% هن actually النسوان. They are buying the sperm test for their partner, their husband, their fiance, and so on. So even within that, we found a niche of couples getting married. The couple's getting married, the woman sits her husband down, husband to be, تحكي له, listen, we want to have kids, I'm going to get tested, you're going to get tested, and we're going to do it together as a couple. For this is actually one of our ICPs, is the newlywed couple who are thinking about kids in the next few years.
To the point of that, اللي هو انت ازاي اصلا you find those ICPs, يعني do you have any learnings لو في شركة بتحاول تلاقي ICPs مختلفة, how they can do it a lot more efficiently?
For us, it's a layering approach. So we stacked a lot of niche ICPs on top of each other. So بعطيك مثلا, a man who's getting a vasectomy. If you're getting a vasectomy, you're saying 99% ما بدي أولاد. خلصت, I'm gonna get the snip and I never have to worry about it again. But actually 20% of my revenue comes from men getting vasectomies who say, you know what? حتى لو 99% ما بدي أولاد بالمستقبل. بس فيها النسبة هال 1% that maybe something happens, I change my mind, بطلق I get remarried بعد كم سنة, there's still a chance, and so they freeze their sperm with us before the vasectomy. We have another ICP, which is men taking testosterone. الواحد بيتوقع if you're taking testosterone, that actually it's very good for your fertility. It's a very logical assumption. Well, it's completely wrong. If you are taking exogenous testosterone, if you are taking testosterone replacement, your sperm count will go down to 0, which is the total opposite of what most men assume. So this is another kind of ICP that we unlocked. And so we've layered on probably 7 or 8 different ICPs to get to the revenue that we have today. The biggest, frankly, I think this is معقد أكتر من شركة لقت 1 ICP or 2 ICPs and they know exactly how to target just those 1 or 2. We have had to learn how to have different messaging for each of these ICPs. And we've taken all, let's say 7 or 8 ICPs, and we've had to have one umbrella messaging that works for everyone. Why do you freeze your sperm before a vasectomy? Why do you freeze your sperm before you're going to the military? Why do you test your sperm? Because when you're getting married. In all of these cases, it's you may want to have a family someday. You may want more kids someday. So for us, the challenge was how do we find the right messaging that appeals to all of these ICPs at the same time?
The cost is relatively expensive. يعني معظم الناس اللي هو تدفع $150 صح؟
$295 for the sperm test. سنويا for the freezing is 100 ل 150 depending on which package you buy.
تفتكر that's also a barrier, and how do you go on about انك تقلل الكوست ده؟ لان بالنسبه لشخص مثلا هيعمل فازكتمي هو خلاص هو بالنسبه له there's a 1% chance ان انا هبقى عايز اطفال تانية. how are you working في حته الكوست دي برضو؟ do you see a world where you're going في الفاليو تشين ورا شويه انك مثلا يكون عندكم المعمل بتاعكم ETC where you have more control over your cost ولا لا؟
نحن من الاول our plan was always we wanted to vertically integrate the business. So بدنا نبني يعني from the ground up our own clinic, our own freezing facilities, our own kit. So نحن actually we're fully integrated as a business, vertically integrated. We control our cost structure. نحن نسبيا الخاص إذا بتقارن male fertility with female fertility, واحدة عم تفكر to freeze her eggs هتدفع $10,000. The process that she has to go through is much more complex and difficult than for a man who's thinking about freezing his sperm. And what we've identified is للناس اللي عن جد who need this product and want this product, the willingness to pay is كتير أعلى من ما نحن عم ندفعهم هلا. So the 300 should be 500. The $100 بالسنة should be $200 بالسنة. So actually there's a lot of interesting pricing psychology around this. How do you value a product when you are not certain what the right reference points are? So إذا بسأل رجال اليوم بحكي له okay طيب what do you think this product should cost؟ بحكي لي ما بعرف female fertility $5,000 $10,000 هيك شيء. يعني بتوقع انه probably سعرك minimum $500 probably 1000 وممكن يكون $5,000 because هو عم يقارن rightfully with what females have to pay, with what female fertility treatments cost. And then when we tell them السعر, which is كتير أرخص, there's always an element of surprise. The surprise, actually, it's a moment of insight. When someone is surprised, what they're saying to you is, this is different than what I expected. There's a gap between my expectations and what you're telling me. That gap is actually the willingness to pay and the willingness to pay more than what we charge today. أنا هدفي إنه واحد بيسمع our pricing and says, okay, makes sense. I don't want surprise. I don't want, wow, that's so cheap. I don't want to, oh my God, I thought it would be way more expensive. لا.
صح بس if I'm playing devil's advocate شوية للستات مختلفة إن يعني بعد سن 40 خلاص it's time bound بس الرجالة it's a lot less time bound. فاهم قصدي؟
صح.
فمش بتحس إن دي برضو مش بتساعد خالص the case for it.
And what you see there is لأن النسوان بين 35 وال 40. That's usually the period where you see a big steep decline in the quality. للرجال it's on an ongoing basis. سنويا بتشوف فيه هيك تدهور بنوعية المنو. But every year you get older, the problem becomes worse and worse. And we're not just thinking about when you're going to have kids in the future. We're thinking about what's happening in the world we live in today. Microplastics مثلا, phthalates, هالكيماويات اللي كتير بتأثر على الجسم وبتأثر على نحن our ability to have healthy children. Why is there an increase in the rates of cancer over the past 5-10 years? We don't know for certain, but we believe it's all these chemicals that are in our bloodstream. So it's the same logic, which is, well, why wouldn't you freeze your sperm today before you're exposed to all these contaminants and these chemicals? Why not freeze your sperm today? What are you trying to do for both genders? You're saying we want to make sure that you can have a healthy child someday, either through healthy sperm or healthy eggs. The end result is the same. And so that's where there's more room for us to change our pricing to be closer to what female fertility companies are charging. And at the end of the day, yes, the process is different. The urgency is different for men and women, but the end value is similar.
السوق مختلف ازاي في امريكا versus في الميدل ايست؟
يعني نحن قعدنا وحللنا, right? Can we expand to the UAE? Can we expand to Saudi? Can we expand to the market? You would ultimately have to have a fatwa issued saying that actually sperm freezing is halal. والأزهر, by the way, بمصر was one of the first universities in the world to say that actually things like IVF are halal. But there is a religious component that we would have to address, and we would have to market our services in a religiously appropriate way. ثانياً بس من العقلية العربية غير عن العقلية الأمريكية. And نحن our level of comfort with these topics, which are more sensitive, is much lower than in the US. The go-to-market is different. بأمريكا, we're talking about 400 million people, all governed under one rule of law. بالإمارات عندك 10 مليون, بس منهم 1 million are Emirati, and probably another 1 or 2 million are non-Emirati who are not working there, and who are not workers there. So smaller market, higher willingness to pay, more cultural challenges, more religious challenges, or just in general less awareness and acceptance of a topic. لأن الرجال العربي ما بده يتقبل إنه في احتمال that he is the problem. المشكلة منه, right? That's a very sensitive thing for a man to understand, and he would prefer to put the blame on the woman. It's easier for us.
صح. What would you say are the existential threats؟ يعني مثلا الناس دلوقتي بتخلف أقل عامة.
صح.
do you see this as one of it ولا العكس اللي هو عشان الناس بتخلف أقل الوقت بيكون الناس كان زمان بتخلف وهي عندها 25 بقوا بيخلفوا وهم عندهم 35 فلما الجودة بتقل دي هتبقى مشكلة. يعني where do you see those threats عامة؟
The birth rates around the world حتى عنا have gone down so much that we're starting to see a population decline. In fact, the only reason we're not is actually معظم البلاد بأفريقيا where the birth rates are much higher. But in the rest of the world, the developed world, the birth rates have gone down very significantly. Part of fixing the problem is testing men's sperm, and part of it is, in my opinion, freezing their sperm when they're young and they're healthy. There's two related issues that are distinct but interlinked, which is human fecundity, which is our ability to have children, يعني at a biological level. And then there's at a societal level, how we think about having children. بعطيك مثل, كنت بعمان السنة الماضية, وبعمان بأي مطعم بتفوت على أي مطعم, بتشوف في ولاد, في عيال. It's set up to be very welcoming to families. إنه هذا الشيء طبيعي جدا, إنه واحد بالعشرينات أو بالثلاثينات settles down, بتجوز, he has kids. قارن هيدا بنيويورك أو بأمريكا. هون بنيويورك you have men in their 30s and 40s, unmarried, no kids, and the norms around family are very, very different. تروح مطعم هون بأمريكا, right? You do not have, and let's say you have a kid and your kid starts crying. بعمان, they'll pick up your kid, they'll play with your kids, you know, عادي. Right? هون they're gonna call over the maître d' and they're gonna complain that there's a crying baby in the restaurant. So even just normatively, socially, culturally, these norms are not here in the US that are very conducive and supportive of having families. So these are the two issues. We are helping solve part one of the problem. But part two, this is probably at a policy level. It's probably at a governmental level. There need to be policies to change the way we think about having kids.
So if you had a magic wand أو عصاية سحرية from a policy perspective, what would you be changing? وإيه الحاجات اللي بتديك أمل كده إن legacy إن شاء الله تكسر الدنيا أكتر؟
We need government support for several things. أولاً, we need more support for IVF, which, by the way, the current administration هون بأمريكا, the current administration is looking at policies to make IVF cheaper and more accessible to more people. Because IVF helps solve problem number one, which is 1 in 6 couples is infertile. It's so expensive to have children here. يعني عم تحكي عن مئات الآلاف الدولارات to just to raise one child here. We need policies to make childcare more accessible, to make the hospital stay cheaper. So one really is around access to IVF. The second is around childcare. And the third, I think, is a bigger media campaign. We need to be shaping the conversation that having a family is normal and healthy and positive and encouraged.
And what's next for legacy?
For us is really we're pushing hard on the government side. يعني نحن من 5 سنين كنا 100% direct to consumer business وشوي هذا عم يتغير. So كان 100% صار 90 80 70 60. هلا 60% of my business is direct to consumer بس 40% is coming from business to business contracts. Off that, the fastest growing portion is B2G, is us selling to the governments. The military is going to be a big part of it, which is helping people freeze their sperm before they go into the military. Because my personal view, أنا رأيي الشخصي, is everyone deserves to have a family. Everyone deserves the chance to have a family, whether you're in the military or not in the military or for any reason. So for us, that's really, I think, the future, which is we should be expanding this model not just from the US, but to other countries in the world. Infertility is not a American issue. It's not an Arab issue. It's not any one country. It's happening across the entire world. And we know that a part of the solution, جزء من الحل لهالمشكلة اللي عم تأثر على كل بلاد العالم, جزء من الحل is testing the sperm and freezing the sperm. That's where legacy comes in.
بتفكر في الاكسبانشن ازاي لو هتروح مثلا اوروبا؟ ايه الحاجات اللي اتعلمتها من هنا and you wanna carry it to learnings ازاي تختار البلد and the go to market strategy؟
كندا، انجلترا، دبي والسعودية. هول هن الأربعة. Canada because it's the closest and most similar to the US. It's the easiest to expand into. هلا المشكلة بكندا actually الكيبيكوا, which is, and we love the Quebecois, but they have a lot of laws. أي حدا بده يبيع بكيبك, everything needs to be in French. So you have to have your product available بالفرنسي. You have to have website بالفرنسي. You have to have customer support بالفرنسي. فكل هذا of course بيعقد any plans that someone might have to expand to Canada. Ingeltra, because it's one of the biggest markets in Europe, there isn't the same comfort level and familiarity with paying out of pocket. لأن هنا عندهم NHS, they have socialized healthcare, مثل بكندا على فكرة. But they are willing, there is a willingness to pay for better and faster products. So هذا بإنجلترا. هلا دبي السعودية, I mean, Saudi is really the most important economy in the Middle East. It has a large population, نسبياً, right? It doesn't compare to Egypt, but I think في حوالي 30 مليون سعودي, right? So obviously it's a relatively large market.
Does it worry you again conversation بتاعت growth versus profitability لو انتوا عايزين to grow جامد؟
No, because once we get to profitability, which will happen بهالكم شهر, once we do, we raise more money. And we use that capital to go and expand to the rest of the world. If you have product market fit, you will be able to raise more money. And for us, getting to profitability, هاي خطوة مهمة جدا, right? But it is one step towards resuming that growth cycle. So to me, it was grow as much as possible, hit profitability, and then it's the second half of the U-curve. So we're just about here. هنكمل من هون.
إن شاء الله.
إن شاء الله.
Thank you so much for
Thank you
for your
for
time.
having me.
وإن شاء الله تكسروا الدنيا.
إن شاء الله.